Hello everyone. Startups is a podcast catering to the startup ecosystem. I am Surendra Kumar and I host founders, entrepreneurs, young, new and experienced, and all other stakeholders of the startup ecosystem. Founders can share their journeys, experiences and their mistakes. Today we have with us Mr. Prasant B. Mr. Prasant is the CEO of the Center of Excellence in Intelligent IoT Sensors and COO of Maker Village. Maker Village is India's largest electronic hardware startup incubator, developed as a pioneering initiative by Government of India in conjunction with IIIT Trivandrum as the implementation agency and Kerala Startup Mission as the supporting partner. Mr. Prasant has been a management consultant throughout his career and has experiences across India, Middle East and the US. Mr. Prasant holds an MBA degree from Ohio State University and has electrical engineering degrees from NJIT and NIT Calicut. Mr. Prasant, welcome to Decoding the Indian Startup Stories.
Thanks, Surendra. Thanks for having me here. Glad to be here. I hope I can share some information and knowledge that I have gained over time.
Sure, definitely. First of all, Maker Village, the name itself says it's something to make about. So what is Maker Village?
So Maker Village, actually the name comes from the Maker movement. So Maker movement is a global movement started abroad actually, where the idea is that people will make things by themselves. Just like, people, earlier when you needed to print a document, you had to go to a printer. But now people print their own documents at home. DTP is there. Similarly, software. So people, have started making their own software. Now you can, do some of the coding by yourself. Similarly, the idea is that people will make things themselves. So the maker movement is about tinkering, about making things. And it can be mechanical things or electronics things, and that's where 3D printing and things like that come to the fore. In fact, some of our startups have gone so far as to enable doing PCB printing on desktop, so that you can sit at home and assemble a PCB at home itself. So the idea is that people can make things. And that is the inspiration for Maker Village. But Maker Village is a lot more than that. The idea is that we'll support hardware startups. Because, most of the ecosystem is related to software in India. So our idea is to support electronics hardware, and that's where we focus on.
My question is, as you mentioned, yes, we have heard about startups and particularly mainly focusing on software. So is hardware startup a big challenge, a real challenge?
Hardware startups are in some ways different from software startups. In some ways, similar. You have to be a startup first and registered with DPIIT in India at least to get support from incubators. But where the difference is, hardware startups have a longer gestation period. They actually have to build that hardware, get it prototyped, and then the question is if they are able to get that customer buy-in, customers are willing to buy, then they have to manufacture these products at scale. Whether it is mass manufacturing or customers manufacturing, you actually have to make something. So the software, all you have to do is you develop a software, make copies. Next version again, you have to work on the code again, and that's it. Pretty much. But for a hardware startup, it is much more complicated. So on the first level, you need to make things in that you can actually touch and feel exactly.
And so my question here is, how does Maker Village, for example, so where is Maker Village located?
It is located in Kochi in Kerala, in the south of India, for those who are not familiar with India.
And what are the facilities you Maker Village offers?
So that's where I was coming to. With hardware startups, they cannot just do with a computer, a bunch of computers and a network. internet connection, which is what a software startup can do. With hardware startups, electronic startups, they need lab equipment to build their prototypes, to test their prototypes. So you need test and measurement equipment, fabrication equipment, because when you actually are making the product, you need when you're prototyping it, you need something to build that product. Whether it is the shell of the product, the form factor and everything have to be taken into account, or whether the electronics components in there, all these have to be made. So what we do in Maker Village is we not only offer the usual office facilities that are already available in many other incubators, but as well as we provide a huge lab here, state-of-the-art lab, where we have test and measurement equipment, oscilloscopes, voltage generators and all those things. Along with that, we have, equipment for additive and subtractive manufacturing. By additive manufacturing, what I mean is 3D printers and different kinds of 3D printers going from, FDM, the lower quality ones, to the highest quality, industrial level 3D printer, where, you can actually build with a design. If you have a design, you can build a shell or a product or whatever that can be fabricated in nylon, and it looks exactly like what you get in the market, through mold, for example. And the other subtractive manufacturing is related to if you want to do any metal fabrication, we have a VMC 3x or 5-axis milling machine, where you can again bring a block of material, a metal or whatever, any metal, and it can be fabricated according to your design in our facility. And finally, the third most important factor for an electronics product is the printed circuit board. So what we offer is PCB assembly facility, where components can be assembled on the PCB in a machine here. We have a SMT line, that is what we call it. Of course, SMT lines are available commercially. You can, similarly, you can build molds commercially, but the difference is that the cost is much lower and the machines are easily accessible. Because if you go to a commercial person, they have to stop their regular line to build 1 or 2 prototypes of your own. But here, this is for prototyping only. So if you want to make 1 prototype or 3 prototypes, our facilities are available at a reasonable cost. In fact, our incubators get a discount on it, but it's available to everyone, and we don't try to make too much revenue or anything on that.
Okay, one interesting thing when you said incubators. So how can somebody come to Maker Village and participate in the incubation center?
So there are different ways to do that, but the main one is you can apply on our website. Basically, the website, there's a link at the top of the website, makervillage.in. That is our website, makervillage.in. At the top of the website, there is an apply button. You can apply. What you will need is information about your startup, in terms of, we don't expect a startup to be registered when they join us. Over time, we expect them to, but, you can also start with an idea. You can apply. You will be asked for a number of information, a bunch of information from you regarding your team, regarding your idea, regarding your background and all those things. And then there is a screening process that happens where, we have an expert committee that will to whom, you will have to pitch as a startup founder, your idea. It can be at any level, depending on the kind of support that you will need from Maker Village and the innovation quotient in that idea or prototype or product, as well as the capability of the team. You may be offered incubation here, and we have a bunch of incubation programs that I can detail if wanted, and then you can start with us. There are other ways as well. We run a number of schemes for various ministries, mainly MIT, who have sponsored a big part of our facility here. Then there are schemes for DST, Department of Science and Technology, Ministry of Defense, and even for other corporates and all. At that time, it's possible that incubation is also offered along with these schemes, as long as you qualify in these schemes. So that's the different ways in which you can get incubated at Maker Village. We also offer virtual incubation. So if you are incubated somewhere else and you want to use our facilities, again, you can apply for incubation and you will be offered virtual incubation where you don't have to, take any seat in our facility, but you can come down here and, use our facility whenever you need it as a startup founder.
Okay. The interesting thing is now we spoke about how somebody can be part of Make a Village Incubation Center. But then the next question is, what about the funding? Do you provide funding or do you provide access to funding or how is it?
So we do have a seed fund within Make a Village that has dispersed, I think around 40 crores or something. Sorry.
40 crores has
no.
already been dispersed.
For around, I think around 4 crores or something. I'm going wrong.
Okay.
And we also have, like the schemes that I mentioned, for example, TIDE 2.0. There are, offer of up to 7 lakhs from the ministry. So this is separate from, what we offer. So first of all, I would say if you get an incubation in Make a Village, that doesn't mean you automatically qualify for funding. Funding is separate from that. Whenever there is a funding opportunity, we will let our startups know and they can apply for it. Or they can apply to some of these schemes that are run by ministries or corporates and all. What we do is we operate these schemes, but these schemes will be open to everyone in India, not just our incubators. But one advantage they might have is because they are part of the ecosystem, so they will be knowledgeable about these schemes that are available and can, pitch for them at the right time. Because what happens is a lot of startups, they're simply not aware of, availability of these schemes. So some of the schemes are tied. Nidhi Prayas. Nidhi Prayas is basically a fellowship program where you can go and explore as a founder or as an individual, explore a problem, figure out a solution, and then propose a solution and get that solution funded. Similarly, we have a new scheme coming up, Samrid, where ministry and Make a Village will co-invest in startups, equity investments. Then we run IDEX, which is a program for innovation in defense excellence, which is for Ministry of Defense. So similarly, we have multiple programs going on. We also had corporate programs like something with Trishul Management Association, where we identified the best startup in the previous year. That was a collaboration between Trishul Management Association and Make a Village. So we offer, and this all had prize money, for example. So there are many ways to get this. And finally, I think BioRack, which is a biotech scheme, actually I think has 1 crore to 2 crore funding available for startups. For the right, again, it is open for everyone in India, not just our incubators. But we have operated that, and some of our startups have received funding in that manner as well. The good thing about this funding is a lot of this funding is grants. They are grants, which means that there is no need to pay back money, no need to give up your equity, and the focus is on building your high technology, deep tech product. That is the idea, because India wants more startups in deep tech in high technology fields, where the innovation quotient is very high, so that it supports our need for progressing in technology.
Prashant, can I ask you a question here? So when you say deep tech, how many such startups are involved in deep tech in Make a Village, and what are the areas they are looking at?
So we consider deep tech only pretty much in Make a Village. There are very, very few startups that are basically involved in some sort of an integration of components or doing the same thing that is already in the market. They are all innovative. So some of these technologies that are available are drone technology, motor controllers. We have one of the startups that build motor controllers for some of the big players in India in 3-wheeler segment and 2-wheeler segment. Then we have medtech, medical technology for healthcare. Then we have IoT and wearables. For example, we have one startup that have developed a wearable that can score you on your ability to weld components. So it's used for scoring people who can weld welding professionals
efficiently.
basically.
Professionals, okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so we were talking about drones, are they in what stages are they? Are they into commercial production or prototyping or what? These drones, what we discussed.
So, there are different stages for different startups. Some
Mm-hmm,
startups have, done their prototyping now. They are looking for commercialization now. Some are
mm-hmm,
in the early idea stages, or they are in the process of prototyping. In
mm-hmm,
then that is the case for all startups. We have around 80 startups in Maker Village right now. That is the case
mm-hmm,
for most of the startups. Most of the startups are basically converting their idea into prototypes at this point of
mm-hmm.
time. There are a few startups around, 20, I believe, 20 to 21, 17 to 20. Yeah. Those have, been with us for quite some time, and they have actually prototyped, got the customer buy-in, and then, they are now looking for commercialization. And we are supporting that through other programs. So that is the status right now. So some of our drone startups have already worked with different government agencies like Kerala Police, uh, different oil and gas companies, then different, the Ministry of Agriculture and all those things. They have even won many awards. So they are at different
Mm-hmm.
stages basically.
Okay, so when you say 80 startups and 20 startups, 25% of the startups are going into the commercialization phase. Am I correct?
Yes, so they have graduated. What we
Approximately.
say is graduation. So they have graduated from that prototyping. They graduated from an incubator. So that is an evolution for us as well, because Maker Village is not only an incubator now. We
Mm-hmm,
are also now an accelerator. We have accelerator programs running now. The reason is
mm-hmm,
that, so an incubator supports, idea to prototype, at least in the hardware
okay.
space, where, somebody comes up with an idea or an early, proof of concept, they can convert it into a prototype in our facility, use our facilities, both the office facilities as well as our labs to do that. But
Mm-hmm,
what we have found is once people have these products in for hardware startups, it's not easy to commercialize that quickly. They cannot accelerate that
mm-hmm,
quickly because there
mm-hmm,
comes aspects of designing for manufacturing, DFM, that's what it's called. Some of these products have to be tested, certified. That involves
mm-hmm.
a lot of cost, and a lot of expertise is required to develop those product designs and all those. For finally, they need a lot of capital to start manufacturing at scale. Even doing the pilot manufacturing and the mass manufacturing later, that needs a lot of capital. So we don't want to graduate. Our graduation is basically they have finished prototyping successfully.
Okay.
There are some
Mm-hmm.
graduation criteria, and once that is done, we don't want to chuck them out, ask them to leave our facilities and then fend for themselves, because they won't be in that position at that point of time. So what we have done is we have developed accelerator programs, commercialization, and scale up programs, so that we can continue to support these startups where they are at a stage where they can compete in the market much more strongly than like a normal small scale industry, MSME for example. So that is our
So
vision.
that will be, yeah, so that will be done within the premises of Maker Village, or they have to move out of the premises of Maker Village?
As long as they will be with us. The idea is that the acceleration programs, the scale up, and the commercialization programs will be hosted here in Maker Village itself. What we will do is
Okay.
we will give them, more networking contacts, more mentoring from experts who are
Mm-hmm,
knowledgeable about, the design for manufacturing, design for testing, and all those aspects, as well as promotional activities. A lot of our startups, they love our promotional activities. We run, conferences, conclaves, organize webinars, investor meetups, so pitch sessions and all that, and they will be able to, use those facilities with us. Because setting up their own labs, setting up their own, office facilities at a time when they also need to spend money on, developing their product into something that can be manufactured at scale is a huge ask for, startups who have just finished their
mm-hmm,
prototyping, even if successfully.
mm-hmm. So promotion is fine, and mentoring you are talking about. So how do you provide your mentoring or these mentorships to your
So we have a mentorship,
incubators?
initiative where we bring in, mentors, so that they can work with different people. So Maker Village has a brand that is attractive not only to startup but also to potential experts and mentors, both technical and business. What we do is we reach out to them proactively, get them to work with us, and once they are engaged with us, they will be able to then work with our startups. Um, so we have brought in, conducted webinars, for example, on design for manufacturing, on how you can there convert their products into manufacturable, designs, for example. Similarly, we have had people come in to talk about components. So, for example, it's very important for hardware startups to have a good relationship with their suppliers. So again, that's the difference between hardware and software. That in software, your suppliers are pretty much your, programmers, and maybe, some development software provider at most, which is not a big deal. But for a hardware startup, there are multiple suppliers for components, for, people who will fabricate the product, vendors, for example. So a lot of people are there. So we try to connect them with these vendors, and we bring these vendors to conduct, webinars on helping our startups develop the product in a good way, so that, at the time of commercialization or, scale up manufacturing, they won't have problems. So these are some
Okay,
of the ways
great,
in which
excellent.
we, engage mentors and, experts with our startups.
So, do you have a particular network of mentors, or already the mentors are on board, or you, depending upon the requirements, you try to get mentors?
Both ways. So we have a network of mentors who already work with us, who have, either as experts, who have their own personal experience, professional experience, or some companies that like to work with us. But at the same time, we are always, taking input from our startups to see what they really want. So in the early days, they told us that they are facing problems in, design for manufacturing and all. I keep saying this because that is very important. The other point is,
Okay.
they have talked about, support in learning about certifications and how to go about them, what are needed in their specific sectors. For example, healthcare sector will need a lot of certifications of their own. Electronics, if you're thinking of exports, even in India, I believe now some certifications are needed. So how we can do that? So we already have one, but again we take inputs from our startups, and then go out and find people who can support that. We also have companies come to us and say that they want to explain different ways in which startups can be supported, and we again facilitate that.
Okay. So these are all in-house programs for, the existing startups
These are
in
purely
Maker
in-house,
Village.
no, not any conference or anything that we go on to, but something that we run from our own place.
Okay. And Prashant, during our, I think one of the talks we were having, you were saying your facilities are open to other people, other MSMEs also, not only startups. Can you explain on that?
Yes, so our facilities are open to everyone in India as long as there is a real need for it. Of course, the ones that are open, I mean, not everything is open. For example, we don't offer a test and measurement equipment to anybody that is outside our incubation facility. But for all the bigger machines, for example, the 3D printer that I talked about, the printers that I talked about, the VMC milling machine, the PCB assembly and all, it is open to everyone. Our incubators, other startups across India, as well as any companies, MSMEs, big companies. There is a rate card that is pretty much available publicly, and we apply that, and on a first come first serve basis, we offer our facilities for anyone.
Oh, that's great. That's good. That's good. And this is region agnostic. So even though you're
There
based
is
out
no
of,
region. I mean, we have been funded by Government of India and Government of Kerala. So it is our duty to give back, to allow our facilities to be used by anybody in India, and that is the requirement from
anybody.
the ministries as well. that we should have
Okay.
a facility
Okay.
open and available. In fact, we recently had someone reach out to us simply because they found details about our facilities on the ministry website, because the
Okay.
ministries are now publishing the opportunity to work with us. So they found out from there and then reached out to us.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. That's great. And what about the other incubators working in Kerala, for example, because you are from Kerala? I think there are 40 plus incubators in Kerala. So are you in touch with them or they are in touch with
So I
you?
have to go back a little and say that Maker Village is hosted by Digital University Kerala. That is our host
Hmm.
institution. We are supported by
Okay.
Digital University Kerala. We are an initiative of the Digital University Kerala. We
Hmm.
have been funded by MIT and Government of
Hmm.
Kerala. Government of Kerala
Hmm.
funding comes through Kerala Startup Mission, which is the nodal agency for all startups in Kerala. They also work with startups across India as well.
Hmm.
So we work collaboratively with uh, Kerala Startup Mission to work with other incubators and as well as the colleges and schools across Kerala. So in colleges, Kerala Startup Mission organizes and runs IEDC, which are Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development Centers. So we work through them, and also we work through the Kerala Startup Mission to work with other incubators in um, Kerala. And we have
Oh,
had
that's great.
engagements with different incubators. They have reached out to us, and we welcome participation by anyone across India. I mean, not just Kerala.
Okay, great. So, what about the funding? Because we have not earlier said you were talking about the grants. Okay, that is fine. This is for the earlier from ideation to prototyping or maybe a scaling up.
Hmm.
So when people move into real commercialization stage, that's where they will require huge amount of funding. So in that aspect, what role does Make a Village play?
So yeah, you're right. Funding, the private funding, VC funding, and all. So VC funding comes in growth stage mostly. Most of our
Hmm.
startups initially were in the idea to prototype, which is pre-revenue stage, and VCs are not that interested. The people who are interested are seed funds. But again, I have to mention that we work with hardware, electronics hardware startups. For electronics hardware startups, simply an idea on paper is not always attractive to even angel funds or seed funds, unless it's some hugely cutting edge. But again, that will need a lot of funding, or unless there is some deep interest in it. So normally startups have to bootstrap or depend on these grants from the government of India and government of Kerala and all, because and if we need that kind of scientific development, we will need public investment, and that is exactly what government of India and government of Kerala are doing through us, for example. Now, when it comes to growth stage, yes, like I said earlier, we organize pitch sessions, investor meetup, or conclaves bring in investors, VCs. What we also do is we engage potential investors and VCs in our various schemes as well, as one of the panel members in the screening committee, for example. So we try to engage with the investor community so that they can further then engage with our startups. Um,
And just do you have a ballpark figure? What is the kind of funding your startups have received for the growth stage?
so recently, one of our startups have raised 1 crore rupees, but you
Hmm.
should remember that they are already offering their products as services.
Hmm.
Similarly, another startup has raised around 80 lakhs or something. They might sound small amounts, but at this stage where they are flipping from a prototype into a full product, these are very key. And they are also sort of a commercial in the sense that they have some POs, they have some sold some products. So that's where these are. And some of our startups that have graduated are now doing well in the US, for example. They
Hmm.
have the seed funding and acceleration program and entry into acceleration program in the US. So these are in robotics. So we have, like I said, different kinds of technologies. Robotics is one of them. So I am.
Okay, can you explain more on robotics and AI because
Yeah.
these are the other fields which are really catching up.
So robotics, we have had multiple startups in robotics. Some have graduated, some are still here. We have
Hmm.
one of the unique startups, a unique technology of robotics where it is completely indigenous. One of our startups, Asimo Robotics, have had their robots being they are humanoid robots, which are for caring, for support for elderly and all. Those robots have been showcased in multiple forums in India, across India, where even the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, was present. So the uniqueness about it is the USP is that it is completely indigenous, and they
Hmm.
recently got 1 crore in a loan from Federal Bank just a few weeks ago. So these are some of
Okay, I remember I have seen that clip wherein the humanoid went to the branch to collect the check.
exactly,
Is that the one you're talking?
exactly, yeah,
It was really, really good. It was really
yeah.
nice.
So these are some of the robotic startups that we have. We have another startup called Shastra Robotics that graduated from here. Currently, they
Hmm.
have received. So that's the one I was talking about earlier. They have received um, an admission into the accelerator program under Amazon in the US.
Hmm.
Not here, not in the US.
Oh.
And they have also been able to scale up pretty well. Now they are on their own. They have graduated from us. But there are others who are continuing to work with us to scale up as they grow. Yeah.
Okay. And what about the AI people
So AI,
in the AI
so
segment?
AI is not something that's solely focused on AI. So it's
Hmm.
AI will be part of the different solutions that our startups are coming up with. For example, so AI is mostly software based. I mean that's the
Correct.
part of the thing. One of our startups is a drone startup. They have worked with Kerala Police. They have worked with wildlife. Their name is AI R&D.
Hmm.
They have AI based solution so that
Hmm.
the images that the camera captures, the videos that a camera captures, they can automatically figure out the target very easily.
Oh.
And then these are for surveillance purposes, so they can easily follow the surveilled target, for example.
Is it is it like face recognition or
Not
target
target
recognition as a whole?
recognition, not face recognition. These are
Okay.
at very serious heights. But you can
Hmm.
see the video. I think it might be available on their.
Prashant, you are the CEO of the Center of Excellence in Intelligent IoT Sensors. Can you explain or elaborate more on what do you do over there as a Center of
So
Excellence?
Center of Excellence is an initiative, started by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, as well as the Government of Kerala. The idea is that two institutions, one is in a CMET, Center for Materials and Electronics Technology, as well as Digital University Kerala, which was earlier IIIT in Indian Institute of Information Technology and Management Kerala. These two institutions have come together to combine their research capabilities and offer that to develop commercially viable products in collaboration with the industry. Industries means startups, could be anyone, startups, MSMEs, or big companies. The idea is that in India, the IoT, India is pretty good at the IoT segment. In fact, we have a huge market in the IoT segment already. But the problem is that most of our companies are focused on software, not on hardware. When it comes to sensors, when it comes to the IoT devices, the components, we are importing them. Pretty much, we could even say that it's almost 100% imported.
Oh.
And it has many implications in terms of supply chain issues that we had recently. In terms of cost, for example, we have a company that want to sell their devices in the healthcare segment at a cheaper cost, but they are the sensor modules that they import are very costly, so they cannot meet the price point that are needed by some of the customers. So they can expand if they are able to get cheaper sensor modules. So that's where the requirement for indigenization comes up. So what
Okay.
what has happened is two institutions, CMET, who are materials people, who have the knowledge of sensors, who have the capability to develop sensors, and the lead scientist from that side is Dr. A. Seema, and then DUK, with the focus on electronics product design, electronics manufacturing, and all that aspects. Again, the lead scientist is Professor Dr. Alex James. So they have come together to deliver this as a research capability function. So there are different ways in which industry can interact with or engage with the COE. One is co-development, where collaboratively they have a problem or they see a requirement in the market and they can co-develop with us. They can offer their resources, we can offer our resources, put them together and develop the sensors or the IoT components that are needed, and develop the product as such, and share the IP, and then they will do the go-to-market. We don't engage in marketing of products and all that. They can. Or the other one is we already have technologies developed in our COE. For example, heat sensors using thermistors. We even have products developed like IoT-based thermometers. Cardiac devices, wearable devices, for example. The idea is that startups or companies can license them out, or even take the components of them to be used in their products and then market them, license them, or share royalty, or different ways in which we can engage.
But here I need to understand, when you said that the IP is being shared by Maker Village and the startup?
Not Maker Village. We are talking about, so COE is separate from
Sorry. Yeah, COE, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
IP will be shared if, there's a collaborative development. Obviously, the fact that two different entities have worked together means, there should be a shared interest in the IP. But where we have developed our own, they can license it out and use it. It will be non-exclusive license. They can market the product in the to their customers, or they can use components of our products to be used in their own products to be sold to their customers. Then we are also offering consulting services to startups and companies.
So what exactly do you do when you say consulting services?
Consulting services, again, developing their products and fixing problems with issues that they face in development of their own IoT or sensor products. So we are offering consulting, and then we'll also have testing facilities that will be coming up in the next 1 year. And there they can do testing and certification of their products, IoT products, here in our lab. So these are some of the services that we want to offer.
Okay, that's great. Testing and certification. That's great. Oh, really good, really good. So I think it was really interesting, because having Maker Village on one hand, and having a center of excellence for intelligent IoT sensors.
So Maker Village is purely focused on incubation. There is no offer of design service, research services that the startups are expected to develop themselves, to collaborate with whoever they want to. In fact, we have a very easy, and we are not micromanaging our startups. So they have a very easy and open environment here. And then we have the R&D facilities that are being offered by the COE. And there are other centers of excellence coming up. For example, as in India Innovation Center in Graphene, where they are focusing on graphene-based products. Graphene is a new material, basically new age material. So similarly, many other COEs are coming up. The good thing is that we are developing an ecosystem around, so it started with an ESDM, electronic system development and manufacturing project. Now it has expanded into so many other things, IoT, graphene, I think motors, so many other things on the research side, and then, so many startups. We currently have 80 startups. We have had around 160 startups go through us. So many have graduated already and gone into the market.
Oh, really, really good. That's a very good, encouraging news for the young, budding dreamers, who want to get into startups, and particularly into hardware.
Exactly.
Because as you rightly said initially, everybody is talking about mainly software startups and other startups, but electronic hardware startups, yes, it's a real big dream, and these are all long lead projects.
Exactly.
And I'm sure, both with the support of Maker Village and the R&D facilities and the research facilities with the Center of Excellence for Intelligent IoTs, both can go hand in hand and really help young budding dreamers, I would call them.
Sure. I mean, we hope that, more and more people engage in entrepreneurship, develop startups, especially in deep tech, because that is the need of the hour for us in India. We need to develop, more manufacturing and, technology capability in India. And we are happy to support that. I mean, Maker Village, COEs, the ministries, Government of Kerala, everyone is willing to support. And there is a lot of access to funding, to lab facilities, research facilities, and mentorship and, experts that are available. So it's a matter of, using these facilities, taking advantage of them to develop products. So, you can develop a product on your own with, some grants and funding. It's pretty much doing at free, and, people are managing big amounts at a very early age. The amount of money that you can never earn as a office goer, even, in your whole lifetime. So a lot more than that. So anybody who is adventurous and willing to, engage in entrepreneurship, do that, should think about it. Think about, startups seriously. Yeah.
Great. It is really great pleasure in having you, Mr. Prasant, on my show, because you have given such wonderful insights, and you have explained very clearly what are the facilities available in Maker Village, what are the grants available, what are the various schemes available. So now it is up to the young budding entrepreneurs, dreamers, to come forward, and I'm sure they can approach Maker Village and make their dream a real success. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Surendra, for having me here. And it's not just for young people; it's for all kinds of people to do entrepreneurship. Experts, people who have had some experience, tend to be very successful in startups, so they can also consider. So again, thanks for having me here. It's been a great opportunity to explain about Maker Village and Center of Excellence in Intelligent IoT Sensors. And I hope this brings in more interest and inspires more people.
Great. Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you. Thanks, Surendra.